Tēnā koutou katoa. No mai ki te Kururato o Waikato, called Michael Jameson tēnei. Welcome to the upstairs version of the Waikato Clinical Campus of the University of Auckland. I'm the Clinical Campus Dean, and it is my pleasure to host this celebration of Amanda's promotion to a professor as one of the honorary staff for the University of Auckland School of Medicine, and my boss is sitting in the audience here, Philippa Pull, who's head of the School of Medicine. My predecessor from several iterations back, Peter Rothwell, is sitting to the left, who was the person who started the Waikato Clinical School as it was there about 31 years ago, and his manager, Raywin Woodison, is sitting in the front row on the left, and she is still the manager, and she keeps us all in line. Anyway, Amanda has been a very big presence at our clinical school and then come clinical campus for a long time. I picked up her CV, which she sent me last year or the year before when I was nominating her for promotion to professor. And I saw that she actually qualified only 4 years before me and has been at Waikato Hospital a lot longer than me, having come here in, you're going to help me out here, 1979, a house surgeon at Waikato. And she has been a dermatologist since 1987, and 10 years later became an honorary senior lecturer with the University of Auckland with teaching and things. So that racks up, some 28 years that she has been involved with delivering dermatology teaching to our students and also to registrars and other people here. I first became involved with Amanda academically in about 2012 when one of her registrars was doing a study on teledermatology to what led to the virtual lesion clinic. Eugene Tan, thank you, who's now in Tauranga, I believe, or whatever. And she keeps coming back and asking me if I could co-supervise various registrars for various master's projects, which is always very interesting and a delight to do. So some of what is going to unfold here is something I have some vague peripheral familiarity with. But for all her service, and Paul Jarrett is going to elaborate on this, but we are extremely pleased when in 2018 she was made a companion for the New Zealand Order of Merit. And I think it was very richly deserved. So we've enjoyed to some degree the reflected glory from having Amanda as one of the academic staff here. So I'll now pass on to Paul Jarrett, who is a self-professed dermatologist from Middlemore Hospital, and really is unhappy when I said, but you are the professor of dermatology, aren't you? So Paul Jarrett.
Well, Amanda, I've written you a speech, so I could say the things that needed to be said. And honestly, it is a great honour and a privilege to be asked to introduce Amanda. And the cliche is that she doesn't really need introduction, but I'm going to introduce you anyway. I've been a colleague of Amanda's for almost 30 years, I think now. And I'm not going to reiterate the glittering précis of your career that we saw in the invitation to this talk. But I really want to use this as an opportunity to say thank you, Amanda. I remember being a registrar here years and years ago, and there was a filing cabinet now in the old building that's been demolished. It was Mark Duffel's patient information leaflets. I was a trainee, and then Mark Duffel, Amanda, and Marius Rademacher took those information leaflets, took a comprehensive digitized photograph collection and amalgamated the two. And that was the genesis of DermNet. It was prescient and transformational thinking at the time to be able to do that. Amanda, you've led the IT sphere for dermatology from the start, and I now know with a focus on artificial intelligence. Your expertise is acknowledged not only in New Zealand, but across the world. You've been at the forefront of the digital transformation of dermatology. You make information accessible to millions and millions of people. It's amazing that that cabinet up there 30 years ago, essentially the core of that is now available to millions of people. And I checked the DermNet site, 20 million viewers per year. It's absolutely astonishing. On behalf of those millions of patients and the doctors, and also, Amanda, the opportunity for young authors to write for DermNet, thank you. I also need to mention the extensive contributions that you've made in the field of women's dermatology, both nationally, locally, and internationally. And you have multiple publications in that field. And also you've made extensive contributions to dermoscopy and teledermatology. Thank you. Robin and I were honoured that you invited us to your ceremony for the presentation of your companion of the New Zealand Order of Merit. And as Mike just said, a rightful recognition and acknowledgement of many years' work. It was such a special occasion, wasn't it? It was unforgettable. Thank you. You've had a long career and a commitment to training and teaching and mentorship. You've been unwavering in your commitment to countless medical professionals, medical students, nurses, training and non-training dermatology registrars and SMOs, and to general practice. You've helped and supported numerous international medical colleagues migrate into the New Zealand system. By helping colleagues, and especially the younger generations, you've made a substantial contribution to the dermatology workforce in New Zealand. Thank you. My view is that mentorship and role modelling are undervalued and under-recognised in training, but essential. When I was your registrar many years ago, I could not believe the indefatigable energy that you had, and you still have now. I just don't know where you get your energy from. Your unwavering eye for detail. I remember you correcting commas and spelling mistakes, because my spelling is atrocious in stuff that I wrote. Your deep and enduring compassion for your patients and your care and diligence with trainees. I learnt these lessons from you, Amanda. Thank you. Medical professor should be an educator and a role model, a researcher, a writer, and an innovator, a transformational thinker, and above all, be able to combine these qualities and talents by being a caring, compassionate, and good doctor. And in all of these roles, Amanda, you have excelled. I am thrilled that you've been made a professor. The accolade is truly deserved. And I hope you look at your long, productive, and distinguished career with great satisfaction. I'm proud for you. I'm proud for you. So Amanda, finally, for all that you've done for New Zealand dermatology, for international dermatology, and for me, thank you.
Just a little bit of housekeeping, please. Can everyone just make sure they switch off their phones? Oh, is it not? Ah. Different link. Oh, no, thank you for making that. Are we recording this? Oh, so what we can do is make the link available to the recording afterwards. Okay, so we'll just, probably we'll send that out after. please, and just say for those of you who couldn't make it, here's a link to the recording. Anyway, as they say in the movies, please switch off your phones. That lovely introduction and 30 seconds to dry her slightly moist eyes. Amanda Oakley, thank you.
It is truly a pleasure to be here. And thank you for those accolades that make me feel like the tall poppy. Now, there used to be a clock up there, and I'm very pleased to see it's not there because you were stuck till midnight, I'm afraid. I've got 140 slides, and I have to show you everything, and it's terribly exciting, and we're going to have a lot of fun. I wondered, Lauren, whether we could shut the door. It sort of feels more like we're going to start that way. And it's so nice to see so many friends, old and new. I'm sorry if I forgot some of your names. Your faces looked vaguely familiar, so that's a start. So let's get going.
I'm Amanda Oakley, and tonight I'm going to tell you a story. Thank you for listening.
Don't you love technology? What happened to the bit in the middle? It was, I'm going to tell you a story.
I'm Amanda Oakley, and tonight I'm going to tell you a story.
Great.
Thank you for listening.
Okay. The essential slide for all talks, the main thing to notice is the bottom line. Generative AI tools were utilized to create this presentation, but I'm agnostic and chose quite a few. You've already heard some of what I do, and here are a few of them listed. I thought I'd start by a timeline, and because I have no memories before I was 4 years of age, I decided I would start at the age of 4, which was 1960. And then skip to when I went to university. I don't remember anything between 1960 and 1979. It's a blur. Not much, pretty much a blur ever since then too. But I graduated from Bristol in 1979 and came here. And this is where I've stuck most of the time. I did have a wee sojourn doing my fellowship in the United Kingdom for a couple of years. And then where would I return but the best place in the world, the Waikato. But what really changed my life was 1995. And that's from then I have the strongest memories because that's when technology really hit my life in a big way. As you can see, in 1997, I can concur that was the year that I started an association with the University of Auckland and the Waikato Clinical Campus. And we have Peter Rosswell up there to thank for that. In 2016, life changed again because we started our electronic referral system in dermatology. We weren't the first to do it, but I think we were the first to have templates and insist that the information we required was included in the referrals from primary care. There was a lot of muttering from primary care, but they've got used to it, and we get lovely referrals now. So what's my life like now? Well, in 2017, there was a very important article in Nature, which indicated that a machine can be as good as a dermatologist in diagnosing potential skin cancers. And so that's been my passion ever since. And one day we'll make it happen. So in 2025, I can do quite a lot of technological things with the help of Siri or my cell phone or a drone or various kinds of chat. You know, my phone goes bing, bong, bing, about 1 million times a day. I have to remember the cat one. That's the most important. I look at this picture of my cat eating in Auckland just to make sure that the food hasn't run out. The cat's still alive, just. There are 2 cats. The other one doesn't come to that feeding place. Generative AI. No, we'd never heard of generative AI until only a couple of years ago. 2022 is when it happened, and yet it is absolutely part of everyone's life who knows how to turn on a computer anyway. And I can work at home. I love that. So I'm going to talk about ICT. It's not an acronym used very often these days, but it stands for Information, Communication, and Technology. And that's how I'm going to divide the first part of my talk anyway. So what is information? You can read it. Well, it's quite small print, but it means facts, or factoids, or maybe misinformation. So what happened in 1960 to learn how to be a dermatologist? You had to get a journal. To get one in New Zealand, I imagine it took weeks to arrive, was terribly out of date, with very complicated words that were difficult to understand, and all in black and white, with no photos. But by 1982, we had library books and print journals, but we needed the librarian, this is Waikato Hospital's library, to find us any articles, because it was so complicated going through what is now Medline in text form. And I wrote my first publication, Petrol Sniffing, Lead Encephalopathy, and gave my first grand round. Boy, that was terrifying. But we still only had black and white photographs to go with our journal articles. And they're not as good as the color ones. So by 1995, we did have color photographs in journals and some books. And yes, that's me at Waikato Hospital. Haven't changed a bit. Now, what happened? So 1995 was this big year. In September, the New Zealand Dermatological Society had a meeting in Napier. And Shearing, who's a drug company, they produced an oral contraceptive used in dermatology, decided they would do something a little bit different this year. And they invited a computer nerd to talk about DermNet. And the first question was, who's heard of the internet? Who's got an email address? Let's do it, said I. And the earth moved. You may remember there was a volcano in 1995 in September. But actually, in Napier, there was an earthquake. But I couldn't find a photograph of that. And the earth moved at the time we had this talk. So what about websites? Well, the first website ever was info.cern.ch, launched in 1991. But it wasn't until 1993 that CERN allowed its invention to go public, and the www was launched. There were 130 websites in 1993. So by 1995, of course, it was old hat. There were 25,500 sites on the World Wide Web. Amazon, eBay, but no Google, no Wikipedia, no YouTube. So we launched a few months later. And the tenets of DermNet haven't changed since then. It's an online resource for anyone with an internet connection, anytime, anywhere, and free of charge. It's much less expensive and more up to date than any journal, and you can have as many color pictures as you like. And the web meant we could join words and concepts. How can you do that in a textbook? Impossible. And as we've already heard, Mark Duffel, Marius Rademacher, and myself, on behalf of the New Zealand Dermatological Society, launched it. So I thought I'd show you what it's looked like over the first few years. If you haven't heard of the Wayback Machine, have a look at it. You can look at websites from all over the world, from whenever. On the 20th of anniversary, my daughter there, who was managing DermNet with me, that's Emily, produced this infographic showing what we'd achieved. The charitable trust, I think, was a major change from being just a group of interested people in 2013. And by 2018, we had 2,500 titles, and lots of continuing medical education. So I'd like to acknowledge those involved when I was in charge of DermNet, the trust board, the staff, some of whom are here, contractors, New Zealand Dermatological Society members, New Zealand Dermatology registrars over the last year or two, doctors, student volunteers from all over the world, contributors to images, of which Waikato Hospital is the biggest contributor, sponsors, and millions of visitors. And I apologize if I've forgotten you. My memory, as I said at the beginning, is not the best. That's why I wrote DermNet, because I couldn't remember all those facts a dermatologist is supposed to keep in their head. I needed to be able to find them instantly. So in 2025, it's kind of old hat, isn't it, going on the internet to find information. And so we can find all sorts of different articles. And we have the editor of the Australasian Journal of Dermatology here today, so I'm glad I slipped that one in while we're here. So DermNet in 2025 is under new management. I'm not involved with the management of DermNet, still providing a few images, but that's with my Waikato Hospital hat. And the editor-in-chief has become a good friend of mine, met him on several occasions now, Ian Coulson, who's a dermatologist in the UK. I'd like to thank Nick Marriott, who's the manager, for providing me with some updated slides. DermNet Pro was produced, was envisioned over the whole of last year, but was finally published on the 28th of April, intended for health professionals who wanted a little bit more than was available on the general site, and quicker, and login is the disadvantage. But you can use your finger or your facial view to get in if you want to, and there's lots of new stuff. So go and have a look and enjoy what DermNet can offer nowadays. So what about communications? So communication is exchanging information, talking, emailing, chatting. In 1960, that was mostly in person. You remember those days you talked to people? We had snail mail, would rush to the mailbox at the end of the day. What was in the post? Usually a bill. We had telephones. Yes, we did have a telephone. It had a wire attached to the wall, and you had to dial to get a number. And I still remember my first telephone number, Chiddingfold 85. That's the Amanda's Trivia Pursuit question. So what's analog then? It just means, I don't really understand this bit, somebody will in the audience, signals represented by a continuously variable physical quantity such as spatial position, voltage, etc. Now we know. So roll on to 1982, medical teaching, we used slide projectors. The slides were never there when you needed them. They jumped. How could they do that? But they would just go jump and fly out and land on the floor. Very strange. Or they got stuck. And I bravely went to New York and did a grand round at the New York University Medical School with 2 carousels. Problem was, I didn't have the carousels. I just had flaps, slides in slide flaps. And I arrived with half an hour to spare to put my slides in the carousels because I was doing dual projection, and the door was locked. And they opened the door at 9 o'clock. And I panicked, and all the slides went. Oh. And I had dual projection. So they randomly went in carousels. They were supposed to match up. You know, this was the before picture and this was the after picture. So it was highly embarrassing. They never asked me back. So in order to get text on a slide, you had to order it from the medical photography department, and it would come back with a spelling mistake. But as you waited weeks to get your slide, you had to put up with it. And that's what they looked like. They were always white on blue. Very smart they were. Then we got overhead projectors with acetate sheets written by hands initially. There used to be one right here. It seems to have disappeared. But we didn't have PowerPoint or data projectors or large LCD screens. And the images, you know, we were so proud of them, but they were really terrible. But 1995, let's go back to 1995. I got an email address. Some of you with grey hair will remember that sort of squeaky noise as you dialed in. Has a very certain tone and is extremely slow and frustrating. And we started teledermatology. This was unheard of. So a man turns up in the clinic room and he's screwing into the wall. And I said, excuse me, I got a clinic appointment in here in 5 minutes. And he said, oh, I won't be long. And he screwed in a television screen. I said, what are you doing? He said, I've got your teledermatology machine. I said, you what? What's that? He said, I don't know. I'm just installing it. Well, that was interesting. So now I had a teledermatology machine and an email address, but I didn't quite know what to do with them. But luckily, there was a man in IS, we did have an IS department, who told me what it was all about. And I said, well, how do I find out how to use it? And he said, I don't know. Let's go on a bulletin board. I said, what's that? Anyway, before I knew where I was in Belfast, learning about teledermatology. I joined up with Professor Wooten, who is a telemedicine leader in Belfast. He subsequently went to Brisbane and then to Norway and has recently retired. And we joined the UK teledermatology trials. And the New Zealand component of the UK trials had the most enrolled subjects. But this was live interactive. That means we did video conference consultations. And we also started doing virtual meetings way back in 1995. The first one I did was with Professor Wooten. He was giving a talk in Belfast, and he called his local dermatologist because he'd come out in a rash. He had a nettle, and he rubbed it on his arm, and he said, oh, help, I've got this rash. And he called me in New Zealand, the other side of the world, and got an opinion. And that was the beginning of a new life. So we had moved to digital. So digital just means Norton 1, and it means computers. So in 2025, we can't imagine life without digital. We have PCs and laptops and mobiles and phones and messages and emails and social media and GPS, chatbots and virtual assistants. And we think nothing of it. It's just what we do. And instead of 32.k kilobits, on the 18th of June, I'm getting 500 megabits, which is 12,987 times what we had then, and you can get hyperfiber up to 8,000 megabits per second today at home if you want to. Incredible. Let's go to healthcare. So digital healthcare looks like this. I can dial in to manage my health. Luckily, it doesn't have anything on it because as to today, anyway, it might all fall over tomorrow, I have health. So let's hope that stays a long time. We've got lots of presentation options for teaching. We can teach on a PC, a laptop, a telephone. We can use 1, 2, 3, 5 screens. We can have presenters coming in from all over the world, an audience in person or anywhere, anytime, or recorded. So should we have virtual events? Certainly it's easier to access and attendance is higher and it's much less costly, easier to schedule, easy to record, and we had conferences during the pandemic. This one here is one I organized for the International Society of Teledermatology on imaging and AI for skin diseases in 2022. But Remember that although the carbon footprint, when you first think about it, sounds great because, you know, you're not getting in your car, you're not flying in an aeroplane, must be saving lots of carbon, especially if you turn off your video camera and reduce streaming to standard definition. It's perfectly good enough for most purposes, and it uses a great deal less energy than if you've got it on high definition. So turn off your cameras if you don't need them. But remember, the digital world is so energy hungry and resource intensive that more CO2 emissions are created from computers than the whole worldwide aviation. And what about electronic trash? What do we do with these computers and printers? Where do they go? Got a whole pile of printers. I just gave them to the pickup system in Auckland. But there were 4 printers that went to wherever they go. So data center energy consumption is a problem. Now we have AI. It's a huge problem, much more than was the case just from Telederm. So cloud services use more energy than some countries, not just the aviation industry. This graph says if we don't do something about that, by 2030, we have an impossible situation. But you may know that Google is building nuclear reactors to produce its energy and some energy efficient technologies. And we're going to see a lot of this from the big companies. It's very expensive, but they are going to reduce the amount of energy. But still, it's still going to climb up. Even in the best case scenario, the energy consumption is going to be a lot more than it is today. Technology. So what is technology? It's the machines used to communicate the information. But what happened in 1960? I don't really remember this, but apparently hospitals had huge rooms for their accountants of computers. We didn't have a mouse, HTML, RAM, floppy disk, graphical interface, word processor, networking, spreadsheet, laser printer. Life was so simple in those days. You could sit on the lawn with your glass of wine and talk to people. So in 1974, I went to Bristol University and I was very proud of myself because I'd just been in the United States for a few months and had bought for $25 a calculator. I was the first person I knew who had one of these things. See, I was into technology really early. I also had a tranny, a cassette player, and my mum had a color TV. But things have gone pretty fast since then. I got my first computer, called a word processor in those days, in 1985. It was all of 256K. And it's hard to receive an email that's less than that. In 1986, I'd learned what a fax machine looked like. By 1991, my diary, my contacts, my everything were on my personal digital device. And in 1991, I also introduced a practice management system to my private practice. And, you know, the apples, they're really pretty. I had all of those and a few more. I had 9 in one room at one stage. So in 2025, we don't need 9 in one room because the only thing you need is your phone, really. Email comes with all sorts of extras, and everything's linked. My laptop, my PC, my mobile, they're all talking the same language. And ping goes one, and pong goes the other, and it's the same thing. And I go, getting quite dizzy here. All these different apps that come mostly free. I'm very stingy. I don't often pay for anything. They expire after about a week. If you don't pay, that's the problem. You have to be really fast onto it. Now, this is a typical working day. Now, some of you who work with me will confirm this is it, and a bit more. I'll just give you a few minutes to just have a look at that. The main thing is the cup of coffee, which these days, because of the expanding girth, I try and actually have this black. So let's move on. What are images? We used to call them photographs. We still do call them photographs because everybody understands that, and images sounds funny, and most people think of images as being X-rays. And if you look on your clinical workstation, it says medical imaging, and it's X-rays, not photographs. So a photograph has to have light-sensitive material and chemical treatment. And then they've just recently added or stored digitally. So now it's okay again to use either image or photograph because it's been redefined. So this is 1982 at Waikato Hospital. That was the RMOs at the hospital. How many do we have now? Just the other day. And now we have, I don't know, hundreds of them. And they still aren't enough to get any work done. Not in my department anyway. So photos, we take photos of people. It might be your mum, your sibs, your daughters, children. I didn't get your permission for these kids. No, never take images of children. They will not cooperate. They were much more interested in sucking the fruit ice cream or ice lolly. And that's the only time I've met Helen Clark at the Women of Influence. I didn't win, but I was a finalist. And at Tech Awards in 2017 with Paul and Robin in the Getting the Gong, and then the Waikato University Award in 2019. So what about medical photographs? Well, in 1960, there were the medical pictures were black and white prints, and they soon moved to 35mm transparency slides. And that's pretty much what most people's desks look like. Anybody remember that? Couldn't find the slide you were looking for. And we see those blue forms? We still use the same blue forms now as many, many, many years ago. This hospital was one of the first and only, and still is one of the few hospitals in New Zealand that has a medical photography department. And we're very proud, and we have been getting consent for photography for a very, very long time. And that was really important in what year was it? 96, when we launched DermNet, that we knew the photographs we were using were consented for teaching purposes. And that is really, really important and continues to be the case for all photographs from Waikato that go to DermNet. But medical photography, like everything else, has evolved from color prints and transparencies, and now we've got digital. So some of you have seen Lauren up there. She's got a digital SLR. You've all got, anybody not got a camera in their pockets, digital dermoscopy, which is my particular interest, and any smartphone will do as long as it can take photos. And photos started coming in 2000. And in about 2000, this IS person came up to my clinic and said, Dr. Oakley, have a look at this. I said, yeah. And he said, it's got a camera on it. You can have your referrals coming through a camera. I said, why would I want that? He said, well, it's instant. You can have it straight away. No, I said, no. The phone rings non-stop. I don't want pictures coming too. Well, I had to have pictures coming too. So what can we do now? Well, you can download apps. I'm very mean, so I didn't pay for any apps, but I just wanted to see which of them used AI and what you had to do to take a photograph. So Flossie doesn't often stay still, but she did for a moment. So it said press and hold to take a photograph. That's easy enough. The next one I tried wouldn't let me go without it. I said try for free, but that didn't really work. It took a picture of Flossie, but it didn't keep it. You had to pay to keep the picture. And this one told me I needed good lighting. Well, I thought that was pretty good lighting already. But anyway, so One of the big problems we have is archiving images. Just like those slides were a mess, we now have cell phones that are a mess. How many thousand photographs have you got, and can you find what you want? So if you've got an iPhone, Apple's trying really hard. You can put in the search box, cat, and it'll find pictures of cats, or Emily, and it'll find that one over there, and so on. But medical pictures, a bit tricky. But luckily, here at Waikato, we have invested some years ago in a proper archiving system. And only one other hospital in New Zealand does this, and the rest of them either have no system at all, or who knows what, or no medical photography department. And even in this hospital, it's so poorly staffed that they're not able to say to the rest of the hospital, please use our system. And so widely, photographs are being taken of patients for clinical or just for fun, and they are not ending up in the patient's notes. They are not taking consent, and they're just unsafe. So what we can do with this system is we can use our mobile phones. That's not what Lauren uses. She's got fancy equipment. But we use our mobile phones to take pictures, and it's very simple. You can get consent on the device for publication if you want, and you get a handwritten signature. You can get an audio signature instead. You take the photograph, you scan the barcode and upload it to the clinical workstation, and instantly we can see those clinical photographs. So photographs in 2025 for dermatologists are going straight towards total body photography. We've got two people in the room who are actually using total body photography. Could you put your hands up, please? In their office, and are looking forward to determining whether it's an awful waste of money, entertaining, or useful. So to be useful, they have to have images of excellent quality and representative of the disease. But they've also got to be exactly the same next time you take the photographs. And that is really, really hard. Now, who's got $300,000 up their back in their back pocket? If you do, you can buy one of these machines. It's absolutely fantastic. There's 20 cameras and it goes flash, and you move around, and it's absolutely brilliant. And we'll take close-up pictures, polarized pictures, and automate the analysis, although it's not approved to do that. Photo Finder will also do automated analysis, also not approved to do that. So who is approved is the doctor. So this is an example of where the AI is being used as a tool, not as an autonomous machine. We're not ready for that, despite the picture on the right, which was ChatGPT's answer for, please draw me a picture of total body photography. Not a bad job. Geetika's here somewhere. Put your hand up, Geetika. So Geetika came back from the States with a pair of glasses called Ray-Ban Meta Smart Glasses. So she took a picture of me. That wasn't too bad. I look rather bored, don't I? And then we tried to take a picture of the same arm, and you can see that the photograph taken with the Meta glasses is not yet to diagnostic accuracy. So we don't think Meta is yet ready for dermatology. However, it is ready for the visually impaired. Visually impaired can buy these glasses with software to help them recognize objects, to stop them tripping over, to improve the independence of visually impaired individuals. And if they're deaf, they can also assist with navigation and communication, telling them about the environment through audio and tactile feedback. Intellectual disabilities, those of us who can no longer remember what we had for breakfast, perhaps that doesn't matter, I don't think I had any. So it's particularly in early dementia, reminding people it's time to make your lunch, it's time to make your lunch, it's time to take your pills, it's time to take your pills, and has great promise for the future of home care. So they're not just a gadget. They are a powerful tool to help people live more independent lives. You've probably seen these type of gaming things, but they're being used in medical education here in Auckland and well, possibly Hamilton, I don't know about that, for studying medical education. What can we do with these devices with medical students? Can we teach them anatomy using smart glasses? Can we, and for dermatology, can we track moles using smart devices? Can we help with remote AI-assisted surgery or map out treatment areas for laser? And help patients manage their horrible skin diseases. Onto dermoscopy, one of my favorite subjects. So photodermoscopy means you need a camera, a dermatoscope, and some means of putting them together. So those of you who are not sure what a dermatoscope is, you probably know what an oroscope is, looks in your ears, or an ophthalmoscope looks in your eyes. Well, guess what? A dermoscope looks at your skin or mucous membranes. And there are lots and lots of different devices, and they're very powerful, very expensive, but getting cheaper. So what's new there? Well, the thing I've discovered this year is UV fluorescence. I thought it was just a gimmick on the latest device we bought for the department called a Dermlight DL5 until I discovered that scabies shines green. So what these pictures are showing are the normal close-up picture of scabies burrows. Here's a dermoscopy image showing the burrow under dermoscopy, and what we're looking for is a little grey triangle at the end. But sometimes it's really hard to see. But on UV, the body, so that the grey triangle is this bit here, but the body shows up very nicely, thank you. It talks to us. So fabulous. We don't need to do a biopsy and find the mite that way. We can use AI to analyze dermoscopic pictures. We can use AI to assist with image capture. So image capture does require dedicated software, consent, security, and storage. And there are various now old guidance on what is important. So I don't think their principles have changed. So read them. What's e-health? Well, E stands for electronic, and health means, well, I think it means illness, actually, but apparently not. So we're depending on the digital revelation. It is a bit of a revelation. I'm still being revolted, or part of the revolution. The information age. Digital electronics have replaced mechanical and analog technology. We've got computers, they're everywhere. Microprocessors, digital cellular phones. You can put a camera down someone's esophagus or bronchus to take pictures of little tubes. And they're very, 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 very cheap. They're widespread, mass-produced, and extremely accurate. Everywhere, anytime, and right away, right now. So digital health is a term that came into the 1990s. There's about 100 definitions, but really it just means using technology for health or healthcare. And these are some digital health things that you might do and corresponding pictures relating to dermatology. So e-health is a word that came in 1999, the use of information and communication technologies in healthcare, and that is equivalent to health informatics. So you will see some overlap with digital health and e-health. Patient-centric. We are here as health professionals to look after patients. They're a real nuisance. I think hospitals would work a lot better without patients. And those of you who remember Yes, Minister know how well that went. So dermatology patients are getting older. And older people have higher health needs. They have more skin cancers, more comorbidities, more drugs, and new drugs, all of which cause rashes, new rashes, old rashes, combination of rashes. Older people have more disabilities. They won't turn up or don't remember to turn up for their appointments. They haven't got any transport. They need a caregiver, and their cognition is failing. Now, that is not quite what I was expecting when I said draw a picture of an old person, but that's what I got. So what are the benefits of digital health for the patient? It should provide improved access to care because they can get their care on the computer or at home. It should cost less. The quality should be better. They should be able to get the world's expert opinion, not just somebody who's not really got too many clues on dermatology, like our department or primary care or most people in the world. And of course, they can self-diagnose correctly or incorrectly. It improves access to care. There is no doubt about that. It's very convenient. Wait times could be zero. The medical history can be shared. Privacy. Patients can make their own bookings everywhere else but Waikato Hospital, and they can access reliable information. They can get online support from smartphone apps for skin cancer, eczema, you name it. And they can go onto Facebook, God forbid, or other social medias so easily. And apparently SLIM is the acronym you need to know: sharing, learning, interacting, and marketing. And I'm sure many of you are familiar with these colorful logos. So the cost should be less with fewer referrals, fewer visits, less travel, and fewer traffic jams. So this is Canva's dreamland idea of a traffic light. The problem is half the cars are going in the wrong direction. It's raining, but not a screen wiper can be seen. I tried 3 times to get that right, but that's what you got. Increased quality, advice from experts, second opinions, and instant multimedia information. Now, if not before. So is e-health good for the public or public health? Can we identify and monitor patterns of disease? We saw in COVID how powerful that was, and remains the case now. We've had 1 case of measles. No more. We can reduce inefficiencies, allocate resources fairly, as long as you're not in the current government or Te Whatu Ora. And in theory, you ought to be able to meet community needs. What about dermatology? We can work anywhere, anytime. Fewer office expenses. This is one of our other registrars about to be a consultant. Less parking, travel, and increased knowledge and help. It's just too much. We can't cope. It's coming here, there, everywhere, all the time, non-stop. With better visual assessments, high definition digital images, demoscopy comes with the photographs. We're discovering by just saying send demoscopy, we're getting demoscopy for everything. It's really interesting what eczema looks like on demoscopy. Transmission of images is easy peasy. We can even prescribe digitally. So look at this graph produced by the Ministry of Health. Digital prescriptions came to my desktop in 2021, about September 2021, which is when I saved this graph. But already it was being expanded. And I can't imagine doing a paper prescription ever again. I couldn't bear it. So collaborative tools, there's documents that we share. We can have version control. It usually doesn't work because X calls it version 1 and Y calls it version 1, then we're in trouble. Share large files like this one, which I uploaded 3 times last night because I kept changing things. Cloud backup, easy peasy. Is it secure? Video sharing for education, conference proceedings, entertainment. Have you heard of Sandra Lee? She's a Mohs surgeon in the United States, but she is the best known dermatologist on the internet. And she is known as Dr. Pimple Papa. You should watch her videos. They are incredible. Try it. So networking, team building, case discussions, informal knowledge sharing. And I can work at home. I've said that before. Here's some more of my team, some of whom are here. Online shopping. I can buy my books, my devices, my equipment, do my banking, travel, accommodation, conference registration when the internet works. I spoke to somebody this morning who said, my internet's not working. Oh no, said I. Teledermatology. So telemedicine is in the dictionary, but teledermatology, for some reason, is not. It means using telecommunications technology for the remote diagnosis and treatment. Tele being telephone, television, and so on. So the methods, we can use a telephone. That's a form of teledermatology. We've done that all my working life. We can use a video phone. The first video phone I used was put in my office by IS, who said, Dr. Oakley, we've got this fantastic thing, a video phone. You can have it in your office. And I thought, oh no, here we go again. Last time it was pictures on the cell phone, and now I have the video phone. But we will do it all day now. But we don't use a telephone anymore. We use our computers. Messaging, e-triage, skin cancer surveillance. We can talk to other doctors. We can talk to patients. We can have one centre looking after multiple smaller areas nationally, internationally, and multinationally. So in 1995, when we started as pioneers here at Waikato, we didn't have very good hardware, software. We didn't have any money for the equipment. It was borrowed for 3 months. It was really good. We had it for 3 years, actually a bit longer than that, 6 years. And after 3 years, it didn't work anymore. The software didn't work. So I called IS and said, could you come and fix our teledermatology unit? What teledermatology unit? Well, the one we've got in our office. You don't have one. I said, yes, we do. It's in front of me. No, it's not on our asset list. So it took a long time to discover it was borrowed for a company that in that 3 months went bust. Thank you. They left us with the equipment and the software, and we did get it upgraded, but it still was unfunded, unscheduled, standalone. But it took us years to get our teledermatology into our timetable. Somehow we were supposed to absorb it, and our patients had 20, we'd have 20 patients in a clinic. In the UK, they had 40, so we were doing quite well. Now we have 6 on a bad day. So we were absolutely hectic, but it was good fun, and we learned a lot, and we did lots and lots of research. So now it's scheduled and unscheduled. It's incorporated and not. And we're beginning to use augmented intelligence. So the word AI might mean artificial intelligence or augmented intelligence, and it flip-flops as to which term is being used most. I think we've mostly gone back to AI being artificial. So what happens? This is an example of a current referral. Actually, it's about 2 years old. But we get a referral completed from primary care. They add some pics. We give them a result, and according to the Ministry of Health, we have to do very comprehensive reports, otherwise we don't get paid. So those registrars who think they can get away with very short reports, we do get audited. We have been audited, and we have been told to desist from short replies. They have to be long, otherwise we are not coded or funded. The one on the right has been going on a lot longer. MolMap started their digital dermatology service in 1997. I joined, as did Marius Rademacher, in 2003, and subsequent Waikato dermatologists have been involved too. It's a private service, and the quality of the images is unparalleled, as is the information, because the melanographers, mostly nurses, are extremely well trained and supported. Artificial intelligence, this is the exciting bit. That is making a machine do things that we normally do as humans. The listed in this dictionary is visual perception, speech recognition, decision making, and translation of languages. I can pick up my phone, and it will read in English something it's looking at in French. Remarkable. So AI chat books, you might think you're not using AI, but you are. So all those chat bots that keep popping up and saying, can I help you, are powered by AI. So you can chat with an AI consultant on various apps for dermatology. You can get an app that tells you to take your pills. I decided I needed to give a lecture to the registrars, and I thought, well, what can AI do with that? So I used a program called Beautiful.ai and said, prepare a presentation on the dermoscopic evaluation of skin lesions in special anatomic sites. And it came up with this in about 30 seconds, which I didn't use, but it's pretty blooming amazing. Audible scribes. Everybody in the room heard of Audible scribes? Not everybody has, so don't be shy. There are lots of them around. And these are machines that listen to your conversation, transcribe it. That means they turn the audio into text, and then summarize the text. And they were only just invented a fraction of a moment ago, and yet in July 2024, 50% of GPs were using Audible scribes in their practice. And in Te Whatu Ora, we can and do use Audible scribes under experimental purposes. And they are going to be launched for usual use quite soon, once Te Whatu Ora has stopped firing all the people responsible for inventing, developing, constructing, saving, securely doing everything, because they're firing them all. Yeah. And you can choose what language. So for example, my patient might be talking in Japanese, and the scribe will turn that into English instantly. So this is Tuhi. This is Te Whatu Ora's proprietary one. And it does all the things you'd want Te Whatu Ora to do. So I had a patient, and I was treating him with his eczema with methotrexate, and he was doing okay. And this was what came out of just listening to my conversation with the patient. And it didn't mention half of the extraneous stuff. You know, you have conversations with people and they tell you about their next door neighbor and the dog and all sorts of stuff. It missed those out. But unfortunately, you have to be aware that Audible scribes will sometimes miss out something really important that should be there. It is absolutely essential to read what it's written, and there will be mistakes. So I couldn't fit on the page the number of generative AI systems there are now. My current favorite is Cider. So Cider, there is a free version. Of course, I never pay for anything, so I use the free version. But it will bring in not only ChatGPT, but also Gemini and other systems, so that it will combine what all the generative AIs will tell you. And they're all different. So you can put the same prompt into different generative AIs and get different answers. And don't believe a word of them. Okay, what is the pathological difference between lentigo, that's a brown mark, and ephelis, that's also a brown mark? Lentigo and ephelis, also known as syphilis, are two distinct conditions with different pathologies. Do be careful. It lies. The other one was ink spot lentigo. Well, that is a brown spot due to sunburn. Typically results from the deposition of foreign material, like ink particles. Well, that is a hallucination. So privacy breaches. So they do occur, and they're really, really important, because I wouldn't put any personal information ever into a free generative AI. if you're using an enterprise non-free one, maybe that's acceptable, but make sure your IT department knows what you're doing. So if you look at, say, Copilot, it tells you all about that. It says, this is not private, do not put any personal information, and we lie and hallucinate. So be aware of that. But it's so fantastic. I can't work without generative AI ever again. And if somebody says I can't use it, I'm walking out. My days are over. It's not yet all that good at drawing dermatology pictures. You've seen some of the other pictures that I've been putting through this presentation. That's a melanoma on the left, this one. And this is psoriasis. But mind you, this is a free version. Remember, I don't pay for things if I can get away from it. So Copilot declined to provide me with pictures of melanoma. This one on the right is for my colleague Karen, who's not here tonight, but she's cat mad. Well, most of the department are cat mad. So I wanted a picture of the beach of people sunbathing, but it sort of didn't want to have naked bodies, so that's what I got. So then with others, I was involved with a study looking at ChatGPT to see whether ChatGPT could actually diagnose from an image. And this is a bit old now, but it can, basically, but not totally reliably yet. So let's hope our patients aren't relying on their LLM, that's large language model, to diagnose. Many of them will be. They're readily available, free, very, very plausible. They are trained to sound as if they know what they're talking about. So if I put something in, as I did several times this morning, and I get an answer that doesn't sound quite right, I will reply and say, no, you've got it wrong. And it'll say, thank you, that's totally right. Yes, of course I have. I'm sorry about that. Well, in conclusion, blah-de-blah-de-blah. So you can kind of work your way through a conversation, but I think you need to be an expert to interpret medical information using a generative AI as it stands in the public arena in 2025. What about diagnostics? So in dermatology, we look at a lesion or a rash, and sometimes we know what it is. Often we don't, and we need more information. We need to know the age, the sex, the ethnicity, the history, what medicines they are, the past medical history. So the ways you could use AI, you could put it into the consumer's realm, no regulations whatsoever, loads of them out there. You look at the App Store and see what you can find. Lots of AI dermatology promising to diagnose your skin condition. But they're untested, unregulated, incorrect, and they have to be very, very sensitive. So almost every picture is going to say, that looks like a melanoma, go and see your doctor, because they don't want to be wrong. And they don't last very long. So if you've downloaded an app and it wants to update itself, it usually says app no longer available on App Store. So we're not going to do that here. The next question is, what about a primary care physician? So if you're a primary care physician, you have to look after not just dermatology. I made a big faux pas once. I said, dermatology has more things, more diagnoses than any other specialty. How wrong I was. I wasn't thinking of the audience who was in general practice or the pathologist at the back. Silly me. We only have 3,000 diagnoses. So if you're a general primary care physician, how can you be expected to tell a seborrheic keratosis from a melanoma? And if your computer system says that's a melanoma, which it's going to do, again, it's going to be set very low bar, doesn't want to be wrong, you're going to be referring or cutting out a lot more than you need to. So autonomous tools are where the AI tool makes the diagnosis and doesn't need a human. And it's been confirmed that that is correct and certificated. So there is a company in the UK called Skin Analytics, And they are the first people to have a European CE level 3 clearance for autonomous diagnoses. But that's only for a really limited number of spots. So they can reliably tell you if a picture is of seborrheic keratosis or a nevus, a mole. But everything else is sent to the human with the AI support. And the human needs to do that. So in 2025, and probably for a long time to come, AI-based diagnostic tools should remain in the hands of the experts as a tool to assist diagnosis, second opinion if you like, and to speed things up. And I think we're going to be using them for management as well. So these are examples of some of the consumer mobile apps I downloaded, and we know that they've resulted in a lot of patient concern, unnecessary appointments, referrals, and procedures. So the patient goes to the doctor and says, but computer says. And the doctor then loses confidence. You can understand how that is. But if you're in a private practice situation and you don't have a 1-year waiting list, like most private dermatologists have in this country, you probably are very pleased for the generation of new work and the opportunity to cut, because you can charge more for cutting than you can for thinking. Skin vision is the best known of these, and this is more reliable than others. And they did sponsor a summer studentship for us in 2016, which was probably our first exposure to artificial intelligence in dermatology at Waikato. And it's very effective and good. But again, they've decided to go the consumer way, which means that they have to be incredibly sensitive. So they are regulated, but mainly what they're doing is recommending you go and see your doctor. Skin analytics is the one I mentioned that has autonomous classification, medical device clearance, and they're in use in more than 20 trusts in the United Kingdom, including the one that Harriet over there is going to in a few weeks, so she'll see it in action, and it's incredible. One of the things that skin analytics has introduced is not just the diagnosis, but also the system. And the dermatologists at Chelsea and Westminster, for the ones that come to them, they no longer see the benign, easy ones, so the registrars are missing out on easy diagnoses, but they see the tricky ones and they put them directly onto a list for surgery. They no longer have to be seen in clinic before they had their surgery. Well, just a little bit with a whisper. We've been doing that at Waikato for 15 years. We've been using images as absolutely enough information to put someone on an operating list. And we do that on a daily basis. Skin Analytics got some of our images. And I went to visit them the other day. So visual search, that means another way of doing AI is you don't make a diagnosis, you just show a picture. So you upload your picture, this is the one you've uploaded, and Derm Engine goes and produces you pictures that look somewhat like your picture. And they tell you what the histological diagnosis for those ones was. And then you make your own mind up whether yours might be one of those or not. And the Derm Engine is a Vancouver-based system. It's registered and in use in New Zealand. It doesn't have clearance for diagnosis. It is simply an archiving system with smarts. They're working on whole body imaging using your smartphone, and you can compare on your smartphone the images taken last time with those taken today, and it will point out anything that's new or changed. MolMap. I've been a consultant for MolMap since 2003, and 2 years ago they introduced Kahu, which is their artificial intelligence system, as a tool not really for the dermatologists, but for the melanographers. So what they use it for is screening. So the nurse gets a second opinion. She's checking somebody's skin, and she thinks, oh, don't like the look of that. But Kahu says seborrheic keratosis. So she looks at it again, gets her dermatoscope and says, yeah, so it is. But if she disagrees, she'll photograph it and it goes, well, it's photographed already. The photographs go to the dermatologist. So we did a study with one of our registrars who's called Harmony Thompson. She's in her last year of training in Lincoln in the UK. And we did a diagnostic assessment of Kahu during COVID. Not good timing, but we were able to show that with the help of primary care, that Kahu was remarkably effective and accurate. So here's an example of Kahu in use. We have an obvious melanoma, and funny that, Kahu thinks it's a melanoma too, so we're all agreed. But it also points out that it might be benign. And those of us in dermatology know that we sometimes get surprises and something that looks like an obvious melanoma, we get a benign report from the histologist. So humans, machines, pathologists can be right or wrong and beg to differ. AIP Derm's a company that we are doing evaluations for at the moment, 2024-25 evaluations. This is the first dermatology program that offers general dermatology smarts. And it's active in Europe and diagnosed 700 different conditions and is an exciting product. We're looking at whether it can diagnose skin lesions, skin rashes in Waikato patients. We're going to look at dermoscopy, whether it can diagnose using dermoscopy, and we're going to look at whether consumers like it, because it has a consumer interface, and whether dermatologists like it. So we'll be checking out whether the dermatologists can find it useful and does it save time. So there's no point in having a fancy, expensive tool if it doesn't achieve something. So the average dermatology referral management at the moment is we get through somewhere between 4 and 6 referrals per hour over our current system. In Hungary, with AIP Derm, they're getting between 40 and 60. So 10 times as many. Now, their cases aren't as complicated as ours because these are unrestricted patient to dermatologist referrals. So we have gatekeepers, which makes life a bit more interesting. But even if we doubled, if we were able to see 8 to 12 per hour, we would cut our waiting times for referrals hugely. So I just uploaded a few pictures, and here's a macro picture on the left of a angioma, cherry angioma, common benign skin condition, and it's rather dark. So if you were a human, you might be thinking, oh, it's a bit black for an angioma, it must be a melanoma. And it actually thought dermal nevus was more common, but it got angioma as number 2. When we gave it the dermoscopy picture, which those of you who are not familiar with dermoscopy, looks so different from the macro, angioma rose up to the top. And if you look at these numbers here, these are low numbers, 0.27. That means it's only got a slight confidence that it was a nevus or an angioma. And that has gone up to 0.9999% sure it's an angioma. Well, if you're a junior consultant and you've only just learned dermoscopy and you no longer have another consultant next door, you're going to have to make your mind up. So a tool that says it's 0.9999 sure, and you think, yeah, you thought it was that, but you just like to have that tool, it's going to be really, really reassuring. Here's another one. This doesn't look like a basal cell carcinoma. And in fact, basal cell carcinoma wasn't recognized by me or the machine. But the dermoscopy came up as number 2, and histologically, that was a basal cell carcinoma. Can it diagnose rashes? Yes, it can. Atopic dermatitis, eyelids, many of you would be familiar with that, and it's 0.76. That's pretty confident that that's atopic dermatitis. Okay, so I've just been to the AI Summit in Wellington. It was a great 2 days, and they did this exercise at the beginning, at the end, and the pregnant one was still pregnant. And I was excited, but I became bipolar. The ups and downs. So what does the future have in hold? Well, we're going to do teledermoscopy with AI assistants for sure. I don't know what it's going to look like, but we're going to use it in some form or fashion. But we need to be cautious because there's so many risks. There's no personal contact. What happened to privacy? That went out the window. Security breaches are well publicized. Erosion of time. Now, these AI programs are gamified. You should see the registrars. The one that we use is not AI, but if they finish a particular task, whee, the confetti flies. It's so nice. I turned mine off. Was getting annoying. But gamification is very much something of AI in 2025. And it turns out that most doctors actually like gamification. And it means they use these tools and they love to use these tools and they give up their day job to use these tools. So it's something to look forward to. But we have to be careful. We have to be careful. So the forefront dermatology reports breach of 2.4 patient records. We're just about to crash by the looks of things. What's coming next? Must be something really exciting. Round and round and round it goes. Let me just escape out of that one. I don't know quite what to do, really. Stop it. Oh, technology failed. Yeah, so the next slide. Okay, we'll do it this way. It'll do. This slide was about misinformation. I don't need to tell any of you about the evils of misinformation. They abound and are terrifying. We can't get people to vaccinate. We can't get people to turn up. We can't get them to put the topical steroids on. And they think that you can cure eczema with various different things. So I thought I'd ask Cider about online misinformation, and I got quite a lot of useful information about that. I'm not going to read it out to you. You'll be very grateful for that. What about e-health literacy, though? If you're not literate, how do you know what's true and what's not? And this might be for economic reasons, geographic, because you're old, because you have a different ethnicity or education interest, literacy, numeracy, media bias, own health, computer ownership, scientific skills. You can't use these tools if you're not taught how to use them, and we need to teach children because this is the modern age and the future. Children must know this to be safe on the internet and what is to be believed and what isn't. But we still have the weather. And I gave this talk a few weeks ago in London. And afterwards, a guy comes up to me, the dermatologist, and said, I was in that hospital. It was terrible. And what about Waikato, May 2021? Some of you were here then. It was quite entertaining, really. The dermatologist did all right, but it was to have been absolutely terrible in ITU or something like that, ED. We didn't know who was at the reception. We didn't have any documents, no schedule, no dictation, no electronic prescription, but our phones still worked. Thank goodness for that, because the computers didn't for days, weeks, and months. Okay. Am I going over time? Is this annoying thingy? Or is it lack of internet? Because we did choose to do it on the internet, didn't we? So you'll be very relieved to say we have nearly got to my lecture end, but I've enjoyed talking and I hope you've enjoyed listening. I asked ChatGPT what I should include in my lecture. You know, I've got a blank page of PowerPoint PPTX and thinking, what do I do now? Luckily, it told me what to do. And tick, we have dermatoscopes. Tick, we have laser. And I would like to thank my colleague over there, Reinhard. Could you put your hand up? He's our laser expert. We have digital dermoscopy and teledermatology. We have AI in dermatology. And we have robots, high-resolution skin-spanning imaging devices at the Hamilton Skin Cancer Centre. Waikato is the centre of the universe. Well, it said at the end, I'll create an image based on this concept. I think that is not entirely the way I see the world, but it's ChatGPT's impression anyway. Thank you for coming, and good night.
Thank you, Amanda. And thank you so much for all of you who attended this tour de force. And it's 7:45, so good night. And oh, okay. Oh, yes. We have a little. In just a moment. So we can string this out. Would anyone like to ask Amanda a question in the finest grand round?